Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair. And this week's interviewee is my dearest friend, Mr. Eddie Dziuk. So sit back and enjoy an hour with Eddie. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair, and this week's a special guest. It's one of my dearest friends of all time, Mr. Eddie Dziuk. How's it going, Ed?
I'm doing well, Will. I'm glad to see you're back up and around. And as a testament to our friendship, Will's asked me a couple times to do this, and this is not kind of my favorite thing. And I've always sort of said no. But given everything that's going on these last couple months, today was an obligatory yes, and I'm happy to be here with you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it. All right. First off, what's happening with your golden puppy today?
Oh, so I am here at home today doing this with you, but our golden puppy Belinda is off at her at a hunt test, and she had 2 clean runs this morning on her land work, and I'm waiting for results on what happens in the water. So I'm excited about that.
From beagle guy to golden guy. Oh, jeez. All right. Okay.
What did you used to call them, Will? Swamp collies? Swamp collies? Isn't that what you used to call my golden
retrievers?
Yeah, exactly.
Because there's always so many of them.
Yes.
But I'm not a handler anymore, so I can't say those things.
Okay. All right. It's all good.
And I love judging them, so.
All right.
All right. Let's start from the beginning. Tell me how, well, not just me, but it's more like just tell me how you got started in the world of dogs, Ed.
All right. So a typical story like a lot of people have, I did not come from a dog show family, but I came from a family where everybody was pretty much consumed. We all loved animals, loved, pets of every kind. Growing up, there was a variety of purebred dogs and mixed breed dogs in our house. But it was, I think I was in middle school. My father was in the military, and we had just transferred. I grew up for the most part in Germany. We had transferred recently back to the States.
How old were you when you transferred back?
It would have been 5th grade. 5th grade. Okay. Yeah. And so anyway, there was a small shopping center near our house, close enough I could ride my bike. But at any rate, we noticed that I think it was Wednesday nights, doesn't matter, but I think Wednesday nights, we noticed that there was always a gathering of dogs in the parking lot of this shopping center. And so I was intrigued by this, and I would literally ride my bike up there and I'd watch what was going on. And it turns out that it was the local kennel club, which was the Mason-Dixon Kennel Club in Hagerstown, Maryland, and they held their obedience classes. They were in the parking lot of that grocery center. And so another one of my father's work colleagues had also just recently transferred back. And when he moved back, he had just gotten a Rhodesian Ridgeback puppy. And so as dog lovers and so forth, we were all consumed with loving on this puppy and so forth. And he allowed me to actually call on the dog with him. And I started taking this Rhodesian Ridgeback to the obedience classes in the parking lot of our little our shopping center. And in the course of that, got introduced to lots of the kennel club members and so forth. And knew that this was something that, I loved, that I wanted to do. And so I was pleading with my parents to get a purebred dog. We had a mixed breed dog at home at the time, and I was, obviously I loved this Ridgeback, but they didn't want me to have anything quite so big. And it turned out that one of the ladies in that kennel club that was taking one of her dogs through the classes was a beagle breeder, and so in speaking with her, that's how we settled on we were going to end up getting a beagle into our household. And the lady's name was Mary Cease, and her kennel name was Hollyhocks. And it became a very long, prolific friendship. She was a wonderful lady. She was very sweet to me and took me under her wing. And she had not a large breeding program, but a very successful breeding program of beagles. And that's how it all started. So I think I was in 5th grade when we started going to those classes, and I had that Ridgeback that we took through obedience school there, and probably about 6th grade when I got my first Beagle. So that was, and literally to this day, at age 61, I've never, ever, ever been without a Beagle since.
Okay. So what happened after that, though? Did you start showing this Beagle?
Yeah, so we started showing the Beagle. We got a bitch from Mary, and then we also got a dog. Believe it or not, we bought the dog through a classified ad in Dog World magazine.
We all do that at one point.
Yeah, right. But the bitch from Mary was beautifully bred, and the dog that we got through Dog World was it was bred by a gentleman in New Hampshire. I think you might actually remember his daughter. So his name was Peter Shea. And he had Cairns primarily, but his daughter Gina worked for Mark during the Robert era.
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah. So anyway, so we got this Beagle from Peter Shea, and he was a grandson of Marsh's famous dog, Marsha Foy's famous dog, Triple Threat. And the dam of this particular dog was a litter sister to the 13-inch bitch that Jack White was showing that he won the national with and won some best in shows with. Her name was Mouse, Colgren's Sonnet of Briarwood. And anyway, so this dog was also beautifully bred. And so I finished the dog first as a junior owner handler, and I finished the bitch shortly after. And that's what started it all. Yeah. So I was very lucky just to have Mary as a mentor, and Jack White, who I've already mentioned, my very first. So we went to some matches and so forth, but the first point show that we went to was that hometown Mason-Dixon Kennel Club. And so we bought all the gear, and we had the grooming table and, the tack box that had, one pair of scissors and, one lead and, et cetera in it. And so I had the Beagle up on the table, and a couple spots away was Jack White, who was, who was an icon in our breed and later became well known as an AKC judge, and later after that a rep. But Jack watched, this, I guess pretty sad attempt at grooming the Beagle. He watched this, and he came over and he ended up trimming the dog for me. And he went on and he won his first points that day under Winnie Heckman, an all-breed judge of, very well known. And at any rate, so then Jack became a great friend and great mentor. And then, of course, going to dog shows, I met Ralph Aldifer. So I was just really, really lucky as a young person in juniors that I had so many people that were well entrenched in the breed and highly successful in the breed that for whatever reason saw something in me that made them decide that they wanted to make the effort to try and mentor me and cultivate that interest that I showed in the breed. And, it was a long list between Mary and Jack White and Ralph Aldifer, Nadine Chacoin, Marsha and Anna were also both very good to me. And so I was just really lucky that I had those people looking out for me and teaching me in those early years.
And how did your dog show life move on from there?
Yeah. So, so the typical thing, I showed the dogs myself. I finished them. I had a group winner in my first homebred litter, which was, very lucky and so forth. I competed in junior showmanship. I made the finals at the Garden. I placed one year in my very last year. I placed at the Garden. The year Val actually won, so that was kind of cool. But then I also did the normal thing where I went off and I worked for handlers during the summer. So I worked one summer for Buddy and Joseph. Marsha and Anna actually fixed that. They said, Eddie, if you can go there and if you can learn how to brush and get a poodle ready for the ring, you'll be well set that you can do anything trimming wise. So I actually spent the summer there, which was incredibly educational. Not only mostly just the care and the animal husbandry aspect. I mean, that was a kennel that had over 100 dogs in it, poodles of all three varieties, at every age, from baby puppies that were taken care of to dogs that you're getting ready to dogs that were in the ring to, famous stud dogs that were there. So it was just a great experience.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I spent a summer there. And then the following summer after that, I found myself at Tom and Andrea Glassford's, and that became that just was a lifelong experience, relationship, family. So I think I spent 3 summers there, and then even when I wasn't, I got to a point where I was in college and so forth, and I couldn't spend summers there, but was still going to dog shows, and I continued to travel with Tom and Andrea. I mean, we had this caravan of Tom and myself and Sandy DeAndrea and their other clients and so forth. We were a great family. We traveled together, and that lasted probably for another 10, 15 years until they retired from handling when Tom became a rep. I would probably, even though I was very lucky in the Beagle world, with those early people, I would absolutely credit Tom as being the biggest influence on my dog life and most important mentor and so forth. So that typical following juniors, assistant to handlers, and then going on and doing my own thing. I did decide the typical thing also. I thought for sure I wanted to be a professional handler, spending that time at Tom's and forth. And I think, to my parents' credit, not to belittle the profession, because I absolutely admire it, but my parents would have nothing. I mean, they were adamant that you are going to school, you will go to college, you will pursue something. And then if after all of that, you decide that this truly is the vocation that you want to pursue, then that's your choice. But we want you to have choices to make. And so I did pursue the college route and so forth, and went on and got a regular corporate kind of job, but continued on with dogs and have never looked back on either my professional career or my dog career.
What were some of I know some of my favorite dogs you had, but tell me your first big winning beagle then.
So the first big winning beagle, this is kind of interesting. So like I mentioned, I did have a group winning dog in my very first homebred litter. His name was Dallas. He was a 13-inch male. And he was, he got, actually, I think maybe won 3 or 4 groups in total, and was in the top 10 for 2 or 3 years. But then when I did go to school, when I was in college, the dogs took a back seat in terms of, I still went to lots of shows and helped out Tom and Andrea and so forth. But in terms of having my own dogs, took a little bit of a backseat. So I've now, if you sort of fast forward a little bit, I've graduated from college. I've got my first sort of corporate job. I'm doing well. I thought I was on top of the world, making all kinds of money and so forth. And I sort of had my Beagle career sort of pre college and all those years, and then post. And if you think about the post Beagle world years starting now, so I was ready to get another dog, and at the time, Wade Burns and John Woodring were doing incredible. They were breeding just beautiful dogs, and they had that 13-inch dog named Dickens, who was a big winning dog. And so I befriended Wade and John, and they were very generous. They already knew me because I already had Beagle credentials, a Beagle background. I'd done well. But they gave me a 15-inch dog named Chevy, who you remember him. He was champion Landber, the company car. And Chevy really, he began that success in Beagles. He was a winner's dog and best of winners at the National under Mike Billings. He won the National under Council Parker. He was a multiple group winner. He really, he put me back on the map, and he put me on the map in the dog world in terms of me and a dog of my own and a Beagle, as opposed to just being Tom's assistant running around. So
that's how we became friends during the show.
Yeah, so that's a fun story as well. So we'll share that real quick if you don't mind. So again, I was working for a company called EDS, which at the time was a Fortune 100 IT company, and we had a contract that we were working on in Canada with the Canadian government. So I was actually in Ottawa on business, and it was a 2-week gig. I was up there, so I was there over the weekend, and I was kind of by myself, and so I was bored, and I was like, well, I wonder, what could I do this weekend? And so I was friends already with John and Chris Hartz, who you know well, and Kim Delaney, and so I called them up and I said, by any chance, is there some kind of a dog show nearby? Anything going on dog related? I'll rent a car, whatever I need to do, just so I have something to do. So they looked it up and they said, you won't believe it. There are dog shows going on in Ottawa this weekend. So I literally, I went down to the concierge at the hotel. I got directions. I took the city bus over to the dog show, and I just sat down to watch the dogs. And I didn't know anybody, but I was just having a good time watching the dogs. And a well-known Canadian handler came up to me and he said, "Don't you own a beagle named the company car?" And that, of course, was you. And that began, I think, a 30-plus-year-old friendship with you.
It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Because like after I met you and we started becoming friends, and I don't want to get into Miss Judy yet because she was my favorite, one of my favorites, but that was the reason. That era was the reason I wanted to pursue beagles more, and I started seeing dogs beagles the way I thought. Oh, what would Ed think of that one? What would Ed think of that one? And it just clicked. And anyway, go on.
Yeah. So that's so Chevy was a great dog. And you got to remember, at this point now, I've got, I'm just, a sort of a young professional. I literally had 2 dogs at home. I had an old beagle from sort of era 1, and then I had this young dog, Chevy. And literally I'd work Monday through Friday, normal job. I'd get in the car Friday night and drive off to the dog show with my beagle, and show them. It was great fun. It was a wonderful time. And like I say, he really put me on the map, and he did well. And he started getting pretty well used as a stud dog. I think by the time all was said and done, he sired probably close to 40 champions, I think. But anyway, he was starting to get to the point where I was thinking about, well, what's next, right? And so Wade and John had a litter of puppies out of him that were, I think, just 6 months old or something like that. And they're like, there's a dog here that we think that he should be your next dog. And they kept talking him up and talking him up and talking him up. And we're at a show, and they brought him, and he was a nice dog, but he didn't blow me away or anything like that. And incidentally, that dog ended up being Lambert Coupe de Ville, whose call name was Caddy, who I think at the last count sired over 100 champions. If it wasn't over 100, it was, just shy. He was a great sire. And he was a nice dog, but he wasn't what I was really looking for in terms of a follow-on dog to Chevy. And so Chevy was entered on the Florida circuit in January. And I was, living there in Maryland, and my friends, the Baums, Dick and Chris Baum, lived fairly nearby. So I dropped Chevy off with them. They drove him down, delivered him to Tom, and Tom showed him the first couple shows of the Florida circuit before I was able to get there. I flew down. I got there just in time to watch Tom win the variety, and then 13s went in the ring. And then Wade walked into the ring with this 13-inch puppy bitch, just 6 months old. And a lot of people talk about those aha moments in dogs where they just see something that just blows them away. And that's what I saw in that puppy bitch. I thought she was the prettiest dog I'd ever seen in my life, not just beagle. I thought she was the most beautiful dog I'd ever seen. And she's just a 6-month-old puppy. And it turned out that she was from that litter where they were trying to get me to take the male from. And so I said, well, no, I want this girl, this bitch puppy. And every day, so then they let me show her the rest of the circuit, and she finished by the 5th or 6th show. And so every day I'm bugging them. Can I please have this dog? Can I please have this puppy? Please let me have this puppy. And I didn't even realize it, but another testament to that friendship that I had with Tom and Andrea. They, every day I'm going back and I'm whining to them about how beautiful this puppy is, and they actually went to Wade, and they offered Wade a lot of money to buy this puppy for me. They wanted to do that for me, and so anyway. But by the end of the circuit, Wade was so tired of listening to everybody talk to him about this puppy and how much I wanted it. He said, just take her. And it was probably they gave me the father, Chevy, and then they gave me Judy. So, what 2 better presents could I have ever asked for? Yeah. So Yeah, so that's how Judy came into my life, and then of course Judy was the she was the start of everything for me. I mean, what Chevy was, but what Judy accomplished was it was really mind blowing if you think about it. So she won. I think when all was said and done, she won 4 varieties at the Beagle National and 3 breeds at the Beagle National. She won 4 varieties at Westminster, 3 placements at Westminster. She won 40 best in shows, 120 some groups, and all of that just me as an owner handler on a very limited budget, working a regular Monday through Friday job, getting in the car on Friday afternoons and going wherever I could. To show my dog, and it was a wonderful time in my life, and I always look back at it with great fondness. And to this day, I really do believe that she was. I think she's one of the great beagles of all time, and I was just truly, truly lucky, just incredibly lucky to have her. Yeah, always be grateful. And I'll also add this: that she was. We've all had those dogs that you call your quote unquote heart dogs. She was my house dog. She was my buddy. At this point now, I've got an old beagle. I've got Chevy, and I've got his daughter Judy. It's just this little of the pack. It was 3 beagles and me, they were great friends. They were great companions, and she lived with me as a devoted pet companion, heart dog until she passed. So she was a great dog.
She was my very favorite beagle, and I don't know if you remember the first time I called you about P. I told you I thought I found a 15-inch Judy.
That's absolutely how you phrased it. Yeah. It was like, wait till you see this bitch. I think she might just be a 15-inch version of Judy. And you know what? In retrospect, when I look at her to this day, I think that was a very apt description. And I was very lucky to have her come in my life too. Yeah.
The story you tell when you see her, it's kind of the story I had with P when I saw P with Caitlin showing her. I was like, oh my God. And right away I thought of you. I don't know if I called you that day or not, but it was pretty close. So carry on. Your life in beagles is not over yet. So
no, so After Judy, I never had another dog of my own that I showed that was quite the same. But there was a long succession. Judy was a decent producer. She never produced herself, but I think she finished up with maybe 8 champions or something in 3 litters. She did have one son who was a really typey, handsome little dog. We called him Lincoln. He was Landver the Continental, and he in turn also sired around 100 champions. So between Chevy and then Caddy and then Lincoln and then another dog that I had a couple years back, who's now passed, but a dog named Carson, who also sired, I think it was, we never really counted those numbers, but it was in the 100 range. So between those 4 dogs, we're talking well over 300 beagle champions. So I had the great opportunity to show many of those that I owned, co-bred, coned with people, a couple that I did just show for other people. So it was a lot of years of a lot of fun with really pretty dogs. Probably the next best little 13-inch bitch I had was a little girl named Grace, who was a granddaughter of Judy's, and she also did well. She was a garden group placer. She won the group at the very first AKC show under Annie. She had a lot of credentials as well. Just a lot of, and they've just in and out. There've been a lot of pretty ones. What are some of the other ones? We had a really pretty bitch from Australia that I was able to import that Bobby Fischer showed. And of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Uno. Uno was a great dog that I was very lucky to be part of his career. I think a lot of us, when we go to nationals, there's always, is this going to be the national where there's like a star puppy breakout puppy, that everybody, regardless of what clique you're in, what group of people you're friends with, what group of people you breed with, whatever, that everybody looks at this one puppy and there's a consensus. This one is a good one. And Uno was a puppy like that. And he was I think it was a Judy great grandson. He wasn't tightly bred on Judy or anything like that, but she was absolutely in his pedigree. But he was one of those breakout puppies that everybody at that national was just like, who is this dog? Where did he come from? Everybody was trying to buy him, and so he was not for sale or anything like that. And but I kept working on it. I was like, I think that this dog has a lot to offer, and I think I'd like to be a part of this dog. And so I did put a little consortium together, if you will. And so we put a little group together that John Woodring and myself and Caroline Dowell, who I'd shown grace with, and we continued on with Aaron as his handler. And of course, he shocked us all. I mean, we thought he was a beautiful dog. He was a great dog. But he had this breakout Florida circuit where I think he won 3 best in shows and never ever looked back. He was only shown 1 year, so he was literally shown he was special from the Florida circuit of 2007. So January of 2007 through February of 2008 when he won the Garden. He was shown 13 months. That was it. And so he was a Quaker Oats winner, 30 some odd best in shows, and of course that incredible best in show at the Garden. I think he was just a hugely popular dog. He was a fun dog. He had an incredible temperament that he was born with, and that of course Aaron really fostered and did a great job with him. But I think to myself, regardless of, I don't know if he was the best beagle ever. His rank's right up there, but he had the best temperament of any beagle I've ever seen. Great dog.
He was a dog that you just remembered meeting. So, Yep. And then I guess the next one would have been P, probably.
Yeah. So then, there's other, I don't want to downplay them or, because they were all important. Carson was a really good dog too. He was a best in show winner, and like I say, an incredibly prolific sire. We really struggled with him because he just did not enjoy showing, and he was a dog that I worked so hard. The number of things I could have in my jacket at any time when I was showing him. I mean, from rawhides to balls to squeakies to chicken to beef to everything, all in various pockets to try and get a show out of him. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it was painfully embarrassing. He just didn't enjoy it. I think had he liked being a show dog, he could have been right up there with the others. But he was a great sire for us, so that's the important part. And so there was Carson. There were a couple others. Like I say, Sage, that bitch that Bobby Fischer showed. Yeah. The way that lease worked was we were allowed to have 1 litter with her here before we sent her back to Australia, and we bred her to that dog Carson, and it just, unfortunately, it didn't click at all. It was not there just weren't good puppies. We didn't keep any. And then when she got back to Australia, she was promptly bred and had beautiful puppies. So, go figure, right? But yeah, and then came P, and like you say, you already alluded to that. And that was a weird scenario that you were even out there in British Columbia for that dog show, and
Alberta.
Yeah, and happened to stumble on her, but shown by some little girl in the puppy class. But
someone asked me to go over to look at a different dog, and when I saw Caitlin walk in with this puppy bitch, I didn't see another beagle. That's all I saw.
Yeah, and so when I saw her, it's funny too, because I did not know Lori, her breeder and her owner at the time, and so then I put this lengthy email together to introduce myself to Lori and to tell her how much I liked her dog, and would she consider selling her, would she consider leasing her or co-owning, just what options might be on the table, and then. I don't know. I wrote the whole thing and I sat on it for a couple of days, and then I'm like, you know what? You don't need another dog in your life. You don't need to spend any money on a dog. You just don't need this. And so I didn't send it. And then I saw her a second time. I think we're at the National at Aldi when you went opposite with her, and I could not stop thinking about her. I mean, I was obsessed. I was really obsessed by her.
Wayne and Brody were already involved at that point.
Yes, yeah, they were, and. I was literally obsessed, and that was probably in October, and so between October then and then the AKC show in December, that's all I could think about. And I started talking to Wayne about it, and then I did call Lori and got to know her, and it was the AKC show in that December, 2 months later, when we sort of put pen and paper to that deal and made that all happen.
There's a really cool picture of you in that. So there's a candidate
right.
the table, and you're watching her in the background. It's a cool picture.
Yeah, and and it's just funny how sometimes things like that all come together. And I look back on that campaign when we had Miss P, and it was just those were some of they were some of my favorite years in dogs, because it was just this great group of people. I mean, Lori and her daughter Caitlin are just wonderful, and of course we had you and your crew, Ann and Kate at the time, and Wayne and Brody and Cheryl, and I mean and Jeff, and we all loved our dog so much and believed in her, and we were all just willing to do whatever we need to do. We all made sacrifices. We all made lots of sacrifices those couple of years to do whatever we could for her career, and it was just a really good time. And the way it ended with that garden was the biggest surprise I think any of us ever had in dogs, and so it was another great blessing. Yeah,
it was a fun time though.
Yeah. You forget that wasn't our first dog together, because we actually had Kevin. You forget about Kevin. Yeah. So that was another dog that Wade and John and I owned together and leased to Will's great client, Bill Gear, in Canada. And so Will showed Kevin, this was probably mid-90s, and made him the top hound in Canada. And he was the national winner here under Annie. And then I showed him for, I think, about another year when we got him back from Will. And then he went on and became a quite highly successful sire in Japan after that. But yeah, so besides me, we've had a couple dog dealings over the years.
Yeah, there was another year you actually showed them both of the garden, won both varieties with
exactly. That was a good time too.
Yeah. Because I don't know what I was doing where I was, but
you were probably in setters
or something. Yeah. That was fun. That was a lot. We had some fun times. I think back about our trip from Orlando to Chicago. We ended up in Cleveland.
So you have lots of those kind of stories, but it was the very end of the year, and and I have to admit I was a fan of the dog, but we're in a very tight race for Quaker Roads with Heather's bloodhound Nathan, and it truly did boil down to those last couple shows of the year. And the way it ended up, the Bloodhound was number one hound in points, and we were number one hound in the group count for Quaker Oats. But to win, we were again make those sacrifices, and so we, I those last in December, Miss P was. I'm not proud of it, I mean, it is what it is. But we were entered in every dog show in the country in December. Every single dog. If there was a dog show in December, we were entered. And then we just figured, well, we'll enter them all, and we'll look at the counts and we'll look at the entries, and we'll figure out what we're going to do. So it would boil down to those last couple of days. We're in Florida. First couple of days didn't really go our way. I think we got a second and a third in the group, and I'm like, Will, we got to go to Cleveland. And you're like, no, don't make me go to Cleveland. I'm like, well, we got to go to Cleveland. So I think it was Thursday night. I forget what, maybe Wednesday night or Thursday night. We drove to the airport in Orlando, and in addition to that spreadsheet of every dog show going on in the country, me and my spreadsheets, I also had a spreadsheet of every possible flight combination that could get us from Orlando to Cleveland. And so we got the very last flight that left the Orlando airport that night, and we flew to Chicago, and we rented a car, and we got in our car, and we drove from Chicago to Cleveland together with Miss P. And we got to the dog show in Cleveland that morning as they were unlocking the building. And we had a good Cleveland and won two groups, and I think a best in show, and then went back to Florida. So again, in looking back on it, it was fun. It was cool. We did what we had to do. It's silly, I think, that we do those kind of things, but yeah, we did it.
We did it. Yeah,
we did it, and it was fun.
It was exhausting, and I remember I hadn't shaved when we showed P the first day, but it was fun.
Yeah.
So now you were already judging at that point. Now I think you started judging when we were showing P.
Yeah, but I didn't do the hound group yet. So, I think I maybe had half the hounds. I got my beagle license in, I think, 2009. And it was back in the original AKC program where, if you applied for one breed, and then on the next application, you could have one more. And now you have two breeds. And so then on your next application, you could apply for two more. Now you have four. So you could apply for four. And so, yeah, it took over 10 years. So literally after a literal lifetime, in dogs, in beagles, in hounds, working for, some of the best handlers around and so forth. But took a little over 10 years, and I did get to finish up the hound group. Finished up the sporting group. I'm working on some toys now. And judging has been it's been a real, I'll be honest, I did not enjoy it as much as I should have at first. I missed being in the ring. I missed the competitive part of showing dogs and so forth. But I've grown to appreciate and enjoy judging a lot more. I don't think I'll ever be obsessed about it, but I do like it. And like I judged yesterday, and I saw, there were some nice dogs. There were some very average dogs, but I saw a little long coat Chihuahua. It's one of my permit breeds, but she made my day. And so, when you judge dogs and then you find something that just that you really, really like, it really is a pleasure. And I do like spending the day with dogs and so forth. And so so the judging is going well, and I still have dogs at home. I mean, we already alluded to, I've got the Golden, who's out at a hunt test today, and I have an old champion beagle bitch that's, I think, 13 now, and then I have Miss P's son,
Mikey.
who's Mikey, who's an interesting story because he was the pick puppy out of her first litter, and everybody thinks their dogs are beautiful, but I honestly believe Mikey is a beautiful dog. I think he could have been a best in show winner, but at around. It was pretty early. I think he was around 6 months old. And I started looking at him going, I wonder how big Mikey is. And so we put a wicket on him, and he was already over at 6 months. And so he never saw the ring. And, I forget how old. I think he's 8 years old now.
But he topped 8 years old now.
Yeah. But he topped out at over 16 inches. So
he's a handsome dog, though.
But he is a handsome dog, and he's a really sweet dog to have at home. Yeah, I think quality-wise, he would have been good enough to be a best in show dog, but he's a really needy, really needy dog. So I'm not sure he would have had the heart. I mean, Miss P was a really tough. I mean, she was a really tough dog. Beagle bitches are much tougher than males, and she was right up there. She was a tough girl. And but Mikey's a really soft, sort of needy dog. So I'm not sure he would have had the temperament, but but that makes him a wonderful dog to live with at home.
And you've already had some exciting assignments. You had the garden. Was it last year you did the hound group?
So I've been lucky enough to be invited to the garden twice to do breeds, and last year the hound group.
That was exciting.
And so I've rewatched it a couple of times. I mean, you don't rewatch it to watch yourself, but you rewatch it to watch the dogs again, and I wouldn't change it. So in judging, it's interesting because sometimes you have some mental do-overs. I wish I could, maybe switch this around again if I had a chance. But I'm really happy with my garden choices with those 4 dogs. They're all beautiful. And but as particularly, I love PBGBs as a breed. We forgot to talk about Peter Parker.
Yeah,
that's another dog that we did together. Yeah, because we've been so focused on beagles. That I was lucky to co-own the PBGB that you showed. That was Top Hound #2 all breed, I think, in Canada. Yeah, and did well here too.
Yeah, best shows in America as well.
But anyway, I've always loved PBGBs ever since they were admitted, and that dog just was everything to me, Buddy Holly, and so it sounds sappy, but I've cried a couple times when my dogs have won something incredible, big. But I've never cried for any other dog for any other reason. But when Beth, somebody of her stature, her knowledge base, her her credentials and so forth. When she pointed to my group winner for best in show, I just lost it and started bawling. I was as happy as every member of that dog's team. I was just so proud of him. I thought he was such a good dog, and that he was selected. It made my night, and I looked a little foolish at the time, crying for Buddy Holly. But yeah, that was exciting. And I've had the great fortune to do the Beagle National here. I've judged Beagle specialties in Mexico and in the UK and in Canada and in Australia. So the judging stuff is taking off a little bit, and it's fun when you have exciting assignments like that. It is.
What's next, Fred?
I don't know. I always joke sometimes, and I go, one more dog. I chant, one more dog. I'd love to have one more dog, but I don't know if that'll happen or not. I guess if the right dog, you never know. If the right dog came along, it sure is fun. Having a really good dog that you believe in, and showing it to that level, those heights. So it's a rush. It's a ride for sure. But we'll just, we'll see how the judging stuff goes. And, I'm getting up there, and I love just spending time. I mean, any given weekend, I don't judge that much. I mean, I'm home a lot of weekends, and I live for, waking up on Saturday mornings and going, on hikes with my dogs, or going to the park with my dogs. And with this Golden, I get incredible, like when we go train and so forth, I get incredible enjoyment out of just being outside in nature, in pretty weather, and watching my dog doing, even though, sometimes she does it well, sometimes she doesn't do it well, but watching her do, just the function who she was bred for, watching that instinct. I love that. I love watching the Beagles run. And the Beagles swim. Now that the Golden swims, they follow her, and so they're swimmers now. And I love spending time with the dogs.
And that's what it's all about. It really is. That was one of the hardest things, being in the hospital, other than the obvious, but I missed my dogs. I really did.
When I do travel for dog shows and so forth, to judge, I don't sleep well in hotels. I think a lot of it is just you're away from home. It's a strange bed, it's a strange room, and so forth. But I know a lot of it is because there's no dog right there.
Yeah. It's true. Oh, well, I really appreciate this, Ed. See, it wasn't
sure. No, it wasn't that bad.
Painless. It was just like you and I talking.
Yeah.
We've done that enough.
Yeah, that we have.
So what's coming up? Do we have anything exciting coming up?
No, I think it's going to be a pretty quiet fall. I don't have any other judging assignments. I am active in the National Beagle Club, so I don't have anything, I'm not showing or anything, but our national is next week. So I'm going to be leaving tomorrow night. I'll spend a couple days at the Beagle National, just visiting with friends and so forth. I'm the delegate for the parent club. So we've got our, club meeting kind of stuff, all those things happening. I'll be in Florida for the delegates meeting down there. And, we really didn't touch on my professional life, but of course, my work at the OFA. Yeah, but my work at the OFA and so forth. So we always play a role in the Canine Health Foundation event that's coming up down in Florida. So that'll be a big deal. And that'll close out the year. It's hard to believe it's November already. I know.
Yeah.
So we'll miss you down there.
Yeah, I was looking forward to going, and
I think one of the last times I saw you were down there showing AJ.
Yeah. All right, my friend.
All right. Anything else?
I hope we have good results from the water test this afternoon. Is that what she's doing?
Yeah. So she's got it. Yeah. So the land portion is done. It's a junior hunt test, an HRC trial. So she's got the water stuff yet to go, and hopefully we'll get her first passes.
I wish her luck.
Thank you. With my swamp collie.
All right. Well, thanks, Ed. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll catch up. So.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Take care, Will.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Eddie. And to think he didn't want to do that. What a great interview that turned out to be. If you like what you're seeing here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button, and look for more things on dogshowtips.com. Take care, guys.